The rarest eagle owl that hid 150 years. Tiny chameleon as big as a nail. Chocolate frog from Harry Potter. Surprising cat fox, and much more. Wildlife is with you. In this episode, you'll see new animal species found in Africa and other places. We start with this ambivalent shot my subscriber sent me. According to his words, somewhere in Africa, people found a completely new species of pigs that surprisingly wasn't a domestic one. These creatures were roaming around at night and ate other living creatures. Yes, the pigs usually eat carrots, grass, and similar food, whereas these cleverer specimens went further in this respect. I don't know how true this shot is, but it drew a big response in the society and made the residents of many villages set night observation cameras to make sure that these monsters exist in the region. What do you think of that? Can such pigs exist in reality? Or was it all a large-scale hoax? Write in the comments. Rarest encounter. People know a lot about the eagle owls, but are you aware that this popular, at first sight genius includes separate rare species that scientists have been chasing down for hundreds of years? We're talking about the Shelley's eagle owl, living somewhere in West and Central Africa. This specimen is especially interesting for being one of the largest owls in the whole world. What's strange, it's one of the less studied. The Shelley's eagle owl is up to 24 inches long. That seems to be quite a big size. Anyway, even that fact haven't allowed the scientists to find this species for the last 150 years. What's more, for the whole industry in principle, not more than 20 specimens have been found if records are to be trusted. At some point, people started to think that these feathered ones died out. Not likely that they've been hiding that subtly, right? It turned out right the opposite. At last, in 2021, people noticed that rare eagle owl. This giant real owl sat on the tree and was caught by the camera of the scientists. The joy didn't know bounds. The species really does exist. But how does it manage to keep such an incredible secrecy? Even many cameras set on the territory don't help follow them. It's much likely that they have something people don't even guess about, something that lets them disguise. You must admit that it becomes even more interesting to study these eagle owls. After all, that means that some revolutionary discovery follows that if we have more information about them. Possibly that'll change the way we perceive reality. Nano chameleon. Speaking of disguising, the most experienced animal in this respect, according to my personal opinion, is the chameleon. Who am I kidding though? It's exactly chameleon we compare the objects blending in with the environment to. They're perfect at changing their color and turn to a very difficult target for any explorer. It's not an easy task to find this little one somewhere in the forest. Now imagine what could happen if a classical chameleon that reaches 12 inches long were 10 times smaller. You're right, it'd be a hiding guru that'd be very difficult to study. You won't believe that such a specimen was really found. In 2021, scientists discovered a new species with a size starting from half an inch. For the sake of the truth, you should notice that this chameleon, as well as other representatives of its family, are not capable of dramatic change in color. This is typical of bigger lizards. But anyway, it's not that simple to spot this tiny reptile. You've got to be patient, have a practiced eye, and a lot of free time to explore wild forests. We start from this fantastic nose frog found in the Amazonian forests. In 2022, somewhere deep in the tropical forest, scientists came across this singing creature. At first, people didn't understand how it managed to escape so many years. After all, the expeditions there have been literally non-stop. Possibly those were its super secrecy and tendency to hide under the cover of the forest. By the way, leave a like if this creature reminded you of that chocolate frog from Harry Potter that children couldn't catch in the train. Let's come back to reality and surprise how attentive the exploration group was. After all, this specimen is just 1.4 inches long. It's characterized by a considerable snout and a striking similarity to the tapir. The frog is covered by brown, black, and green spots that help it blend in with the forest environment. Despite its small sizes, it's strong and agile enough to find food and, at the same time, not to catch the eye of the predators. Nevertheless, all the subtleties of this creature are still a mystery. It's only in the planning to study the species, but people are calm. They're not worried about the fact that forests on our planet are still provided with a wide biodiversity until now, which means they're in a good health. Cat fox. People have been noticing very strange cats on a French island for several years. They behave some distantly, don't contact with the locals, and have never been seen with usual cats. They differ from the domestic cats with a foxtail and unusual coloration. The locals have been thinking that those are unique introverted cats that don't want to talk with anybody. At the same time, when scientists came to the island, they gasped with surprise. That could be a new animal species. Specialists have been studying these cats for more than 10 years. They collected the animals' fur samples to investigate them, made lab analyses, and so on. Their DNA turned out to be utterly close to that of the African wild cat. It comes out that either we have a new species that came into being not so long ago, some cat fox, or on the contrary, we deal with an endangered species brought to the island many years ago. If you ask me, I wouldn't like that nice cat to die out. After all, it'd be ideal for people who are eager to get such an ideal fox as a pet, but don't do it because it requires wildlife conditions. It's the existence of this giant from Australia that doesn't cause me any worries. The scientists from the Queensland Museum opened and described a new spider species. These dreadful creatures stand out against the common background by the fact that they regularly dig tunnels in the soil, make burrows, and even create special doors. The representatives of the new species are active only at night. The rest of their time they spend without an access to the sunlight. It's exactly for that reason why it was so difficult to find the new species, even despite their sizes. The observation showed that the females never get out. As for the males, they find their way out only 5 to 7 years after they are born. It wasn't possible to find out more about these species. Anyway, something prompts me that the spiders have something they can surprise not only the scientific world, but usual civilians as well. Dinosaur or penguin? This question seems to be maximally stupid and irrelevant. After all, any appropriate scientist will distinguish one from another. However, what was found by paleontologists somewhere in the Mongolian steppes stumped the scientific world. The international group was investigating the remnants found in the southern part of the desert Gobi and revealed a row of unique structural features, pointing at the semi-aquatic way of life and active fish hunting. It's the first known dinosaur out of the modern bird group with a similar structure. Against this background, everybody came up with the thoughts that they have in common with something new we didn't guess about. The new species was named Nadovenator polydontus, translated as the swimming hunter with many teeth. Though their overall amount wasn't clear, there are more of them than we have only in the premaxillary bone, in other words 13 teeth. In addition, judging by the remnants, the ancient creature didn't stand out for its sizes. Together with the tail, it was some half a meter long and not taller than 16 inches. This swimming hunter has an unusual rib morphology. They're oriented as converging in the tail. That's typical of active swimming birds, not only flightless ones, such as penguins, but also flying ones, including razorbills, for example. This structure is useful from the point of view of hydrodynamics that reduces the water resistance. Anyway, that doesn't help flying or just land species. At the same time, this creature was found in the Mongolian steppes where no seas existed even in the ancient times. It comes out that we deal with a small creature whose body build tells us about its sea way of life. This being said, it was discovered far away from the water with a jaw full of teeth, which contradicts to the theory of underwater life. In a nutshell, the scientists have to do with an unsolvable puzzle. Demon shark. The demon shark is a common name for the genus of the underwater sharks. However, that specimen we'll talk about later got its name not for nothing. In reality, it looks terrifying and, what's most important, unusual. It was discovered some 30 years ago. Back then, either due to scientist negligence or just because of information lack, the shark was ranked among the wrong species and delivered to the museum. Just 3 decades later, the scientists turned to it again, examined and confirmed disinformation. It became clear that back then a completely new shark species fell into the hands of scientists they hadn't known. It was finally identified due to its unusual eggs with a unique pattern. This story began in the following way. In 1992, a comparatively small shark was caught, 18.5 inches in length. By mistake, the finding was related to the black gill cat shark and somehow forgotten. The only true fact was that the fish did really belong to the genus, but had unusual peculiarity, making it stand out against the common background. It's all about the sharply white wall eyes the scientists for some reason didn't pay attention to. However, such eyes aren't a common feature of all the deep-sea sharks and are characteristic of another species. Now the investigators would like to reconsider the museum collections, hoping to find other species that were mistakenly classified in the past. I can see everything. The scientists of the Hong Kong Baptist University discovered a surprising creature with 24 eyes in the pond of the Mai Po Nature Reserve in Hong Kong. The specialists studied DNA of this creature and came to the conclusion that it was another jellyfish species belonging to the family of venomous box jellyfish. The jellyfish has a transparent body with the size of 1 inch and 3 long tentacles. By the way, these tentacles have a flat formation due to which the new creature swims faster than all the rest. This jellyfish has more than 20 eyes divided into 4 groups located per 6 eyes in each of the 4 corners of its square shape. This is the first case when a new species of the box jellyfish was discovered in China. The investigators consider that finding this testifies about the rich sea life in Hong Kong that cannot but bring joy even despite its frightening nature. I think that in this episode you've already made sure more than once that our ocean is explored only for a small part of it. So it has enough to surprise us until now. But what you see and hear later will strike you even more. Meet Yeti crab. This hairy divine ocean guard reaches 6 inches long and was first discovered in 2005 during some deep water expedition. I hope I don't have to explain why it was named like that. These white fluffy hairs looking like those Bigfoot are visible not only to me, right? Like its mystical land brethren, Bigfoot, the crab honors the traditions and continues hiding from people. If Yeti lives somewhere underground or in caves and blends in with the surroundings, as legends say, the crab solved this problem in a genial way and went underwater for 1.2 miles. People will never find me here, it thought, and was shocked that the man went that far to find it. The wet specimen of this species is the only one extracted one and preserved in the National Museum of Natural History in Paris. Despite it wasn't studied properly, it's as sure as a gun that the creature is super resilient. Otherwise, how could it exist at such a striking depth, right? Though judging by the creatures invented by nature, that crab can hide a lot of secrets. For example, one day it turned out that Pedofern amuensis lives on the Earth together with us. This small frog species is the tiniest invertebrate in the world. The adult specimen is 0.3 inches long. They're endemic to Papua New Guinea that have been unnoticed for a long time. I think you understand why. It was only in 2009 when they were discovered during the expedition of Papua New Guinea species diversity exploration. The finding was made in the southeast of the island. That night, the investigators managed to record sounds the new species uttered that were not similar to the usual frog singing and resembled insect chirping. The signal sounded like a continuous series of high sounds with a frequency from 8 to 9,500 hertz. The record lasted several minutes, just 5.5 minutes. For this time, the little one managed to utter 355 signals. What they meant, who they were addressed to, and other details were kept in secret. However, it became even more interesting for the investigators to study them. What's more, they were even more motivated to observe them by the fact that these specimens lacked the larval stage. In other words, those were independent combating microunits hatching from the spawns, ready to spread chaos and destruction, punishing everybody for even slightest laughter at their address concerning their size. Now I'll show you even rarer animals born once in 1,000 years. It's been a while since we've had albinos. Let's fix it. Meet the albino raccoon. Surprised? Yes, it turns out that such a creature really exists. They're very different from their striped and dark relatives and outwardly look more like giant possums, rats, or hamsters than raccoons. The unique and rare white fur of these predators is the result of mutations that have occurred in the body. The habits and life features of albino raccoons are the same as those of common raccoons, except that it's more difficult for them to hunt and survive because of their rare fur color. In general, everything's the same as in the case of other albino animals. That's why people try to catch such unique animals and place them in animal reserves and animal centers where people can take care of them. Next, we have another rare animal with an unusual color. Relax, this is not an albino. They will no longer be in the episode. It's the turn of colorful creatures, and the first of them is a pink grasshopper. It's hard to believe that such a creature is even real. It's like a fairy tale character, or at least a Photoshop product, but no, pink grasshoppers actually exist. According to scientists, the unusual color of these insects is the result of a genetic mutation, which is characterized by a violation of the pigmentation of the outer integuments in favor of red, orange, or pink. These grasshoppers look very elegant and cool, but they themselves are clearly not happy with such a mutation. Such creatures are rarely born and even less often live to adulthood. Because of their very bright color, they become an ideal target for predators that detect them in no time. Colorful beauty can be found not only in the grass but also on the ocean floor. Off the coast of North America, along with ordinary lobsters, blue ones can crawl there. And no, this lobster is blue not because it's very cold, it's just another unique animal which is extremely difficult to encounter. Scientists believe that one blue lobster is born among 2 million ordinary individuals. Of course, a unique color is due to a genetic mutation. It causes lobsters to produce excessive levels of dark blue pigment, and as you might have guessed, these arthropods are an ideal target for predators, like pink grasshoppers or albino animals. Only a few blue lobsters manage to survive. That's why they're so rare. Fortunately for them, people usually don't eat such unique creatures. Fishermen consider blue lobsters to be a good omen, so as a rule, they let them go back into the water. And then there are the yellow lobsters. They're not as rare as the blue ones, but they are very unusual. Check them out. Saola. Not only individuals or representatives of some species can be extremely rare, but even the entire animal species as a whole. And the Saola demonstrates this perfectly. This is the even-toed ungulate that lives in Vietnam and Laos. It's also sometimes called the Asian unicorn. Simple fact says that the animal is very rare. It was discovered only in the early 1990s. Just imagine, 30 years ago, no one could simply find this 220-pound creature. The discovery became a sensation. No one expected that at the end of the 20th century, it would still be possible to discover a new, unknown species of large mammals. Although the species is new, it's already on the verge of extinction. According to estimates, there are less than 250 individuals left on the planet. Scientists cannot say the exact number because they can hardly observe saolas. They have to use camera traps or film animals secretly. Scientists in general cannot tell much about saolas because these hoofed animals are very secretive and unsociable. It's known that saolas move singularly or in pairs, that they're timid, and that they're active in the daytime. It's unknown whether scientists will be able to study this rare animal species in detail. But let's hope that they'll have time to get to know saolas better. Which of these animals surprised you the most? Write in the comments. Later, you'll see strikingly huge animals that break all the records. People have always been interested in primates. In the past, people noticed that they behaved in very intelligent and unusual ways, which made them interesting. Nowadays, there are a number of theories that we are descended from them. Yes, and their behavior still strongly attracts people. But there are some species that are interesting for completely different reasons. For example, a giant gorilla named Snowflake. He became known in 1964. The thing is, he was an albino. The light-skinned snowflake lived about 2 years in captivity, which is already surprising because albinos are not just unique creatures, but also those who have a lot of health problems, let alone their main problem, bright color. It was the conspicuous coloration that made Snowflake vulnerable to humans. He was caught and transported to Barcelona. In the Central Zoo of Barcelona, Snowflake became a favorite not only for visitors, but also for the entire staff. He was unique not only for his unnatural white skin and fur, but also for the color of his eyes. In albinos, all parts of the body are white, and the eyes are no exception. Snowflake, on the other hand, had unnatural blue eyes. But his life could not do without illnesses. Thus, in the last years of his existence, he got skin cancer which could not be cured. What kind of pets do you know? Well, dogs, right? Cats. That's kind of the main pets. And then there are rats. However, not like giant Bosavi woolen rats from Papua New Guinea, which people stumbled upon quite by accident. They were filming a documentary called Lost Land of the Volcano. where they talked about the active 18 volcanoes and accidentally noticed an unusual animal in the area of filming. It turned out to be one of the largest rats in history. Measurements showed that the length of the body of the caught rat, from the nose to the tip of the tail, was 32 inches. The weight was about 3.3 pounds, which is also a lot for a rat. Outside the body of the rat is covered with thick, silvery brown fur. As scientists believe, this cover allows the animal to survive in cold and wet conditions inside the volcano crater. No one has yet given the rats a scientific name, but it will probably be associated with the volcanoes near which they were found. Would you like to have such a rat as a pet? Let me know in the comments. Giant alligator. Okay guys, this video is no longer cute or funny. It's dangerous because it shows people filming a giant alligator walking on a golf course. It happened in Florida, although I thought it was only real in fairy tales or movies. As if nothing had happened, this 16-foot-long alligator came out on the golf course and calmly, valiantly walked along the road somewhere to the side. To say that the witnesses were stunned and speechless is an understatement. I wonder how much food such a big creature needs every day. It probably eats several deer a day, doesn't it? The people behind the camera, after the predator left, ran with the footage to the owner of the golf club. And you know what he said? It turns out that this giant often walks here, and everyone is so accustomed to it that they made it almost a symbol of their golf club. Would you want to play where this predator could suddenly appear? Personally, I wouldn't. Pigzilla. I think I know which animal can beat that alligator. Only Pigzilla, or a huge wild boar, can defeat it. The incident occurred in Hong Kong. Parents took their children to school and, returning, witnessed the actions of a huge boar that crawled out into the street. The boar was eating something from the garbage bins and was not shy of anyone. The formidable animal was so engrossed in the process that it didn't care about the others. According to their local newspaper, no one ever found out the sex of the wild boar. It was probably a male. This is evidenced by its size. Locals are sure that such desperate behavior of the wild boar was caused by hunger. In search of food, these animals come to human dwellings and even eat crops on farms. But now the question arises, is it safe? There's a school nearby. Kids are running around. You never know what can happen. I would definitely bring this to the end, and since there's a forest with wild animals nearby, it should either be fenced off or some special feeder should be put out for the forest dwellers away from the school. Although, I don't know. Sometimes I think that no one and nothing can stop animals at all. If they want to visit people, they will. And this elephant seal on the lawn of an ordinary man in the Chilean province of Aysén is the perfect proof of that. It seemed that these creatures can live only in the water, well, or on the shore nearby. But to get this far on their short flippers, just pushing themselves forward, it's some Herculean effort. But in this case, I have a logical question. What's it all for? What was the point of the actions of the elephant seal? It's unlikely that it came to visit its old sailor friend in the hope that he would give it some fresh fish. Not surprisingly, this incident has sown panic in the minds of the residents and made them think about the coming cataclysm or something else terrible. Allegedly, the animals sense the approaching danger and go crazy. Can you explain this behavior of this abnormal elephant seal? Share your thoughts in the comments. Oh yeah, I forgot to clarify. In the end, the giant was fine. People from the relevant services arrived at the site, stretched a special fence, and poured water on the elephant seal. Thus, it was guided step by step into the natural environment until it submerged underwater again. What an encounter! If at the sight of that elephant seal you suddenly thought it was the largest animal in the world, you were wrong. Well, you were right about the elephant, but the word seal was a bit redundant. The largest elephants in the world are still common elephants. African bush elephants, to be more precise. These are mammals of the African elephant family, one of which the people in the following video encountered. They were traveling, exploring the area, and didn't even think to encounter any animals. Suddenly, it came out to meet them. The elephant made the car seem like a child's toy. Science says that the length of their body usually varies from 20 to 23 feet, and the height reaches 13 feet. The average weight of females is 3 tons, Males, on the other hand, are almost twice as heavy, weighing about 5 tons. Of course, people had no measuring instruments at hand, but we can still say that the giant corresponded to the maximum size of elephants in nature. Fortunately, the giant was calm and even friendly. It walked past the cars, turned around, and walked slowly deeper into the savannah. Hit the like button if at some point you also thought that it would decide to climb into the car or interact with people in some way. But fortunately, nothing like that happened. Next, we have the cane toad, or as it's also called, the marine toad. Initially, this amphibian lived only in Central and South America, but for now its habitat has expanded significantly. The cane toad can be found in Australia, on many islands of the Pacific Ocean, and even in Japan. People helped the toad to settle around the world, using its voracity and unpretentiousness in food to fight with agricultural pests on sugarcane plantations. Apparently, these toads were allowed too much because how else to explain the emergence of such a large individual? This record breaker was found in Australia, and according to the first analysis, just by eye, it's one of the largest cane toads in the world, as it weighs about 6.6 pounds. The expedition workers jokingly named the individual they found Toadzilla. As you've already realized, they came across it not by chance. There was a special mission in which people were exploring the forests of Australia for something unusual and interesting. As they drove from point to point, someone blocked their way. And no, it wasn't a toad, it was an ordinary snake. So while people were waiting for it to slither through, that very huge toad jumped out. And from the very first seconds of its appearance, it attracted the attention of the people around it. Atlas moth. What a lovely name, isn't it? It is, by the way, the name of one of the largest moths in the whole world. The Atlas moth inhabits southern countries and has many subspecies. One of the nicknames of the moth is the Prince of Darkness. It got its second name because it flies exclusively after dark. What do you think of the idea of replacing Batman's bats with Atlas moths? I think it'd be cool. Why? They fly exclusively at night too, and they're also much larger and potentially dangerous. As for the individual caught by the man in this video, it, like its relatives, has a noticeable curve in terms of shape. It vaguely resembles the head of a snake, which scares away enemies. Its coloring is also attractive. It combines yellow, red, pinkish, and even chocolate colors. The wingspan of such a creature reached at least 10 inches. Would you also like to hold such a giant moth in your hands? Let me know in the comments. Also, let me know which animal's size impressed you the most. Thank you for watching, and see you later.